On number three, if you do it the way I do it, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to read the wording and you're going to copy all of the information you have in the wording down on the picture so you can just look at the picture. Okay? So the first thing that I would say is if you have not copied down 6x minus 2 in this spot, like first comment would be, do it the way I do it. Okay? Second comment would be to isolate the two parallel lines that we're talking about. I've highlighted them already. I'll highlight them again. That's this. This. Those are the two parallel lines. Okay, the two blue ones, if you can see them. What's also true is that has one transversal. So now, after we do that, we can kind of just focus on the fact that we have this angle and this angle. Then you need to ask yourself, how do those compare? Those are called alternate exterior angles. They're alternate exterior because they're on the alternate side of the transversal and they're on the outside of the two lines. Alternate exterior. Alternate meaning opposite sides of the transversal. Exterior meaning outside the two lines. Okay? Because they're alternate exterior, they're congruent. Okay? Because they're congruent, their measures are equal. That's why we can set up this equation. After we set up that equation, we can crank it up and get 20. After we get 20, we plug it back in to get angle 1, and we get angle 2. Okay? Okay, let's look at this. We have a situation where we have two transversals and a bunch of lines that are distracting for us. You need to split it apart and just focus on the parallel lines and the transversal that makes up the angle in question. Right now, the angle in question is angle 1. Okay. If you look at it, you can notice that angle 1 is a linear pair with that 95-degree angle. Right? Something you need to recognize and notice. That linear pair means those two add up to 180. If those two add up to 180, 180 minus 95 will get you what angle 1 is. Okay? Long ways, measure of angle 1 plus 95 is going to be 180. Solve it. Minus 95, you get measure of angle 1 is 85. With me?
Yeah.
Now, if that's the case, we try to identify the transversal. We have a transversal there, which says that angle 1 and angle 2 are going to wind up being congruent. Those are actually called corresponding angles. Corresponding angles. We're going to talk more about that today. We talked about it once already, but we're going to talk about it more today. Those are corresponding angles, so they're the same measure. Corresponding angles are congruent. Corresponding angles are in the same position on the transversal for both lines. They correspond in the same spot for both lines in relationship to the transversal. Okay? See how they kind of look like they're the same measure, too? They are. Okay? 1 and 2 being congruent, which means 2 is 85. That makes sense? You guys want me to walk through 3 and 4? Okay, I'll do 3 and 4 for you guys. Well, if 2 is 85, that means 3 is a linear pair with 2. Does that make sense? So it's 180 minus 2. Will get us back to 95. Or another way to do it is this 95 right there, and that 3 are corresponding angles, which means they're congruent. Third way to do it. 4, you could say that angle 4 and the 95 those are exterior angles, which means they're congruent. You could also see this 3 and 4 are vertical angles, so they're congruent as well. Okay, yes, sir.
Question on reading the lesson part.
Let me show you the answers and then we'll talk about it as needed. Again, a reminder that an additional theorem that we've talked about is corresponding angles are congruent. Okay, corresponding angles. Corresponding angles meaning, okay, in corresponding spots in relationship to the transversal. Corresponding spots on each line in relationship to the transversal. Which means, like, for instance, angle 8 and 7 are corresponding angles. Also, 1 and 5 corresponding angles. Okay, you don't have to write that in. I'm going to erase it, just to let you know. Those would be two quick examples of corresponding angles. All right, here we go. So if you're doing it the way I do it, I would write in 78 in for measure of angle 1 as I read it. So I'd write in 78 in for measure of angle 1 as I do it. I would also write in 47 as measure of angle 2. I'll write those two things in. So now we don't have to go back to the directions. We just look at the picture for those two things. Okay? So let's go ahead, focus on, okay, the question is, what is angle 3? So let's go ahead and just identify what angle 3 is. Angle 3, right there. You guys see how that relates to a measure that we were already given? The 78 in particular? How does measure of angle 3 relate to 78? Linear pair, which means they're supplementary. Linear pair means adjacent and supplementary. Yep. Which means that so measure of 3 plus 78 equals 180. Measure of 3 is 102. With me on that? Doesn't matter what it looks like. Yeah. It actually had a quiz. I made one on purpose to not look like the measure. I tell you what it is. I don't know. No, I don't remember. Okay. Yes. Okay, let's look at measure of angle 4. That's now the measure in question. By the way, if you do it the way I do it, I would change measure of angle 3 to be 102, and I would write it in there in some way so that I could tell what it is. Okay. Then I would take a look at, okay, what's measure of angle 4 here? That's now the measure in question. Okay. Do you guys realize? Can you guys see the two parallel lines that are given? Do you guys see that there's a transversal that cuts through those two parallel lines? Right there. You also see that the measure we just found being 102, measure of angle 3, you see that that is a corresponding angle to 4. They're corresponding angles. Because they're corresponding angles, we can then say that they're congruent, which means measure of angle 4 is 102. Lots of conversation for one little, just writing the answer. Not much to write down, but a lot of conversation to have on it. Number 5. Number 5 is a linear pair with angle 4, or sorry, number 3 for angle 5. Angle 5 is a linear pair with angle 4, isn't it? You see that? Since it's a linear pair with angle 4, that means that it is 78. 180 minus 102, back to 78. Okay, measure of angle 6. Measure of angle 6 actually hops to the other transversal. Okay? See how there's two transversals in there? 6 hops to the other transversal. So we need to focus on the other guys. And we also need to focus on the measurement that we're given of 47 rather than 78. Because we hop to the other transversal. Okay? Angle 2 and angle 6 are a linear pair. You guys see that? Since they're a linear pair, they add up to 180. How do you find out what the next? 180 minus it, right? So it's 133. I'm going to write that in there. Do it the way I do it. I'll write that in there. 7. 7 you can see is a linear pair with measure of angle 6. So it's supplementary to 133. Or, just as you were saying, you can see that it's vertical to measure of angle 2. It's vertical to angle 2. So 7 is vertical to angle 2, which means they're the same. They're equal. Measures are equal. So 42. Oh, 47, right? Okay, so that's 47. Sweet. Number 8, measure of angle 8. 47, because it's a corresponding angle to measure of angle 7, right? Or, what's the other way you could view it? It's an alternate interior with an angle 2. You see that? You can view it as that too, both of which are fine. Okay. Number 9, it's a linear pair with angle 8, so it's 133. See how it's a linear pair with 8 from a straight line? 180 minus. We can go from there. Spend a few minutes looking at question 8, okay? Just take a look at number 8, okay? Work on it, ask some questions to people next to you. If you get stuck, I want you to start taking a look at it and getting an idea on how to deal with it. Okay, on number 1, or number 8, first, did you recognize that there's a linear paragraph that compares the two axes? When you go like this?
Yes.
That's essentially the first thing you do that. That's form a linear pair. Okay, since that forms a linear pair, okay, they add up to 180. So they're supplementary, so they're going to add up to 180. So these two are supplementary, so they add up to 180. So 3x plus 1 plus 6x minus 14 equals 180. Then we can solve that. We can find out what x is. 9x minus 9x equals 180. And 9 equals 7, so it's 9x equals 180. And then divided by 9, we get x is 21. So now we have value of x. The second thing we need to be able to see and visualize is that that line is parallel to this line. Those two lines are parallel. And these two angles are consecutive interior angles. Because they're consecutive interior angles, they add up to 180. They add up to 180. Or you can notice that y plus 8. Sorry. Y plus 8 and this angle right there, those two are corresponding angles. Since those are, that's the easiest way to do it. Since those are corresponding angles, those are equal in measure. So we can set up the equation to say that they're equal in measure. We already know x, so we can take x and put it in the second expression. And that's all. Which winds up being 68. So y plus 8 equals 68. And minus 8, so we get y is equal to 60. Okay. Any questions on that? Okay, we're going to keep going. We're going to work on the next one. If you notice, we have parallel lines here. We have this transversal right there. First thing you notice is probably that 5x and 9y form a linear pair with each other. Since they form a linear pair, they add up to equal 180. Although we don't have x and we don't have y, so we've got another situation where we need to find it. What's one thing we can notice from the picture that we haven't really drawn there? Yes? If that's 90 degrees right now, this one down here is also 90 degrees. If you remember some of the conversation you guys had in middle school, which could be a long time ago for some reason. Okay? If you notice that that guy is 90, right there, you know that 5x then equals 90 because there's corresponding angles. So you can just set it up, say that they equal each other. Okay? Because 5x is corresponding to an angle that's 90 degrees. Divide by 5, and you get x is 18. After you have x is 18, you can stick that back into this original statement that we made right here. Right there. You can stick 18 in for x right here, so 5 times 18. plus 9y equals 180. And you can solve it then. 5 times 18 is going to be 50, which is going to be 90. So you get 90 plus 9y equals 180. You get 9y equals 90, and you get y equals 10. Okay. Again, we can turn around and look at the next one. If you look at it, we've got two parallel lines and a transversal, and you have two consecutive interior angles. Consecutive interior angles add up to 80, or 180. Okay, so that's the setup for that. You can solve that for the value of x. Okay? If you look at it in a different way to find the value of y, if you notice that, again, two parallel lines and a different transversal, these two expressions for y, okay, those are consecutive interior angles, so again, they add up to 180. Oops, ran out of space. You could add those up and say equals 180, and you can solve that for y now as well.